the United States government announced that they're extremely concerned with people spreading misinformation about vaccines and COVID-19 in general. They announced they will closely monitor text messages and social media interaction in order to prevent the general public from being misinformed. Somehow, the government believes you have no mind of your own, no thought process of your own. You're not capable of filtering information worth keeping, worth looking into it with more detail. You're not capable of such thing. But what is misinformation? How do we define that? In data analysis, misinformation is defined in two folds: information without evidence, or information with data bias, meaning based on data which does not reflect the general population. Prior to population reaching 50% vaccination status, a COVID-19 case was defined as a positive test result from a PCR machine. Once population reached 50% vaccination status, a COVID-19 case is now defined based on two different status. If you're vaccinated, a COVID-19 case is defined as a positive test result with a threshold count of no more than 25, and the person must be hospitalized or died from COVID-19. If you're unvaccinated, a COVID-19 case is defined as a positive test result with a threshold count of 25, no more than 25, regardless of hospitalization, symptoms, or whatnot. People, prior to this rule, most case counts in this country were done with a threshold count above 35. Now, some of you may not know what this threshold count is. It's basically a zooming mechanism of the PCR machine. So the higher the count, the more the machine is zooming in order to detect viral DNA particles. The lower the threshold count, the harder it is for it to pick up these particles. Also, the more efficient way to determine whether there is an actual viral load epidemic. A lot of scientists were arguing that the definition of a case count was invalid prior to vaccination. that the threshold counts of these machines was too high, and it was simply picking up way too many false positive cases. The government ignored the evidence and continue with the case counts. Then we had the measures that were placed, such as the economic lockdowns, and also preventing kids from attending school, families gathering, all based on data bias. It was obvious that the data provided by this PCR test was prone to elevate case counts. After the population reached the 50% vaccinated status, the CDC chooses to change the case definition, agreeing that a threshold count, any threshold count above 25, does not reflect a true case, as there is not enough viral particles for that person to be contagious. So that is not data transparency. That is not data consistency. If we wanted to see whether vaccines were effective, we should have the same case definitions prior to the vaccines and after the vaccines. So now they're making it harder for a case to be counted as a case if you're vaccinated. They're making it a lot easier for a case to count as a case if you're not vaccinated. So obviously, we're going to see what we've been seeing the past couple of weeks, which is all these headlines about this pandemic being driven by the unvaccinated. I mean, anyone who has to take a plane anywhere needs a PCR test if you're unvaccinated. If you happen to test positive, that counts as a case. If you need to go to the doctor for whatever reason, to a hospital, you're first going to be tested for COVID-19 if you're not vaccinated. And if you test positive, regardless of whether you're experiencing symptoms or not, you will be counted as a case. However, if you're vaccinated, you will be counted as a case only if you're hospitalized or if you died from it. Not very transparent, not very clear, not very consistent. Thankfully, we have transparent or more transparent data coming from the UK, where they have had an exponential rise in cases from the Delta variant. If you look at the latest briefing, today is July 18. Latest briefing was on July 9th from the UK government's data. We can see that there is a higher death count from people above 50 years old who are vaccinated than those above 50-year-old who are not vaccinated. If we also look at the COVID symptom tracker app from the UK, which is also available online, you don't need the app to look at this. This is an app that sort of functions like the Johns Hopkins for the entire globe. This is local to the UK. They announced this Friday that the case counts among the unvaccinated had dropped 20%, while the case counts among the vaccinated have risen 40%. You see, in the UK, they have the same case definition whether you're vaccinated or not. If you test positive with a PCR test with a threshold count below 30, you are counted as a case. That is data consistency. They also announced that most likely starting next week, the case count for the vaccinated will outpace those who are not vaccinated. Now, they do mention, which might be true, but it might not, that the reason why this might be the case is because there is less people unvaccinated than vaccinated. 60% of the vaccine eligible population are vaccinated and 40% are not. I didn't do the math, but it will be very easy to get the right conclusion by calculating the percentages of each status. So what percentage of the unvaccinated population have tested positive and what percentage of the vaccinated population have tested positive, and we could determine very easily which population is driving cases. Regardless, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, COVID-19 vaccine does not prevent infection. We were told before the vaccines came out that if you get the vaccine, you will not get COVID-19. That is misinformation. That is information based on no evidence. Later on, the narrative changed because the evidence showed that if you are vaccinated, even fully vaccinated, you can still get infected. True, you will experience less symptoms, you will experience less of the disease caused by the COVID-19 virus if you are vaccinated than if you are not vaccinated. You were told when the vaccines came out that the vaccines are 100% safe. Later, we find that they're not. That is misinformation, information based without evidence. Point is, we the people have come to realize that the information given to us is not transparent, it's not clean, it's not consistent, and therefore we have had no choice but to inform ourselves, find the ways to inform ourselves about the situation so that we can make the best decision for us as individuals. Individuals. I am an individual with certain rights given to me by no one other than God. And I live in a country that respects those rights. I live in a country that up until now was proud to respect the freedom of speech. I always enjoy walking by Union Square and listening to random people speaking up their minds with a microphone. That didn't mean that I would join them in their cause. That wouldn't mean that I would join their religion or whatever social cause they were talking about. But it's great to be in a place where you have the right to speak up your mind and even the right to be in disagreement with the government. I highly encourage you, people, regardless of your political ideology, to really think about it a little bit deeper about what the government is trying to do with this censoring. You do not want to live in a country where those who may have a different perspective, a different way of thinking, are silenced. That is communism, my friends. That is communism. Even if those people are not in line with what your political ideology is, you do not want to live in a country with those people, where those people are silenced. That is communism. That is all, my friends.